Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a little more about philosophy of law, especially a law review that it's been written by Wendell Holmes Jr., which is he was Supreme Court Justice um, during 1930s. Um, he made some major decisions that dealt with certain, labor rights. How many hours per day we should work and things like that. But for this purpose, because I'm talking about a philosophy of law, I would like to talk about his law review, the essay that's called "The Path of the Law." In there, he adverses this that Justice Holmes, um, tries to say that we are actually confusing two concepts between what is legal and what is moral. And in fact, he says if if we do not make distinctions, then we are confusing the fact that it says is that the theory is up to get the cart before the horse. So what that means is that since we are confusing that law comes first and morality is second. It's the as he says here, as the theory is up to get the cart before the horse. So that is confusing, meaning the morality does not is not the force that drives the law. It's the law that is the force that drives morality. Meaning there is moral influences, but we have to make distinction between what is legal and what we think is moral. And in fact, if I may say, as I said before, Justice Holmes believes that law is the prediction. We can use the law to predict, and we might have an accurate prediction, or we might not have an accurate prediction, but law is the prediction that what a court will do. What will courts decide? We have to look at the law, and we'll have to try to make predictions, which we know many legal system, lawyers and all that, when they take a look at the case, they look at things and they try to make a prediction if they have a strong case, if they're that, but they will not. If they say that they will win the case, then maybe you need to look for another attorney. But the separation between morality and law, which I will discuss further later in terms of Lon Fuller and H.L.A. Hart. Those were the major 20th century philosophers and legalists that actually debated this idea between what is moral and what is legal. And if something is legal and it's not moral, does that mean it's not a law? Well, for Justice Holmes, no, it says law is the law. And in fact, and I'll put on the page one of the essays which I really like to read, is that he talks about how we should see the law. What is the law that is trying to achieve? And so here is what he says. If you want to know the law and nothing else, you must look at it as a bad man who cares only for material consequences, which such knowledge enables him to predict, not as a good one who finds these reasons for conduct, whether inside the law or outside of it, in the vaguer sanctions of conscience. So in other words, he's saying if you really want to know what a law is and how different it is from morality, is that you have to look at from a bad man's perspective. Meaning those that want to use the law, either they want to use their force to justify their ends, or those that really either maybe want to break it or is looking to gain something from it. Meaning either meaning material, or look at things that will enable him to predict what those rules will be and how will that work in his favor. That's all the bad man cares. He doesn't care about morality and how is it moral or not. He's looking what the law is saying, and how can that law be used to make decisions. And then further down he says, for instance, when we speak of rights of man in moral sense, we mean to mark the limits of interference with individual freedom, which we think are prescribed by conscience or by our ideal, however reached. So it's looking at it, and let's say freedom of speech, as he mentions here, in a moral sense, is if we're putting morality as a test, as a limit, as a measure of the law, then we will have to look how much is the law interfering with rights of freedom, like a First Amendment. But the question is that how much are we allowing for morality to influence our decision making? Or if we are looking at it again as from a bad man's perspective, then we are looking at it in different light, because we are looking from bad man's perspective, either as a criminal, or the one that wants to break the law but does not want to get caught, or the one that breaks the law but does not want to go to jail. So the law is this tool for people that want to use it, maybe we can say and abuse it, but that has nothing to do with morality. Morality, if we're looking at morality puts these different tests, like freedom of speech, or puts the if we say, if you call someone, in terms of freedom of speech, if you call someone a liar, and you say it publicly, well, you might be sued if you don't have your facts. But morally speaking, that may be wrong for you to say that that person is a liar. But legally speaking, if a person is a liar, then you must have certain facts to back that up, meaning what that person lied about. What did they say? Did they promise something and they lied about it, or they did not fulfill the promise in terms of contract? So then the law comes in. So we cannot say as what, and there is this important distinction that we have to make between morality and morals and legality, is that the tests that we use to, not we, but I'm saying the legal system, the judges that they don't use moral idea to decide certain case, let's say involving freedom of speech. They use, let's say, freedom of speech, at least the way I understand it, is used by the judges in terms of clear and present danger test, which I believe Orlando Holmes, the same justice, has implemented that kind of test. He didn't use the morality. He says, hey, if it's going to cause an immediate danger and harm to a person or to a public, therefore you're not protected by First Amendment. But at the same time, if we're looking at that from moral perspective, yes, morality tells us no, we should not hurt anybody or harm anybody, intentionally or unintentionally. That is a little different standard. It's a little more general standard in terms of interpretation of First Amendment, if I may say so. But and to further make emphasis on this point, is that this is where people think that you have rights until you go to court, and then you realize that these rights are not just given to you, you have to earn them, you have to defend your rights, you have to have the facts and back them up and all that. So this is why the morality does not play a part, because morality is a general test, legality is a different test, and legality is stricter, a lot more focused on certain area, and it demands certain stages or certain scaffolding that you have to meet when you are talking about your own rights. And here, even or Wendell Holmes talks about this different idea, and it says, manifestly, therefore, nothing but confusion of thought can result from assuming that the rights of man, in moral sense, are equally rights in a sense of constitution and the law. That's exactly what I was talking about now. It says that it says nothing but confusion of thought can result from assuming. So nothing but confusion can result from assuming. So this is where I believe at this point is very important, because it talks about how people take their rights, and they think that, oh, I have the rights, and they think of it as a morality, or in a moral sense, not in terms of the legal sense. So this is where he says, no, he says the rights in a moral sense are totally different than the rights that are given in Constitution and the law. So those two ought not to be confused. And this goes back to his horse carriage theory a few minutes ago that I read. So it is very important to differentiate moral and legal obligations. You might be morally obligated to help your family or your siblings or your friends. Are you legally obligated to help them? No, you're not, unless you have an explicit contract with your family that you need to do X, Y, and Z. Then it becomes legal. Morality is a general idea that we can say. I have, some people, you might see an old person crossing the street and barely cannot cross the street, blind person really struggling to cross the street, and you help that person cross the street. That you're putting yourself as a moral obligation. But do you have a legal obligation to help that person cross the street? No, you don't. And it's not advisable even to do that. What if the person gets hurt? This is the problem with negligence law, where you help, and at the same time that person gets hurt, and then you end up being sued because you caused certain damage to that person by helping them. That's very tricky subject, and I'm not going to talk about it now, but just to show some examples of what is legal and what is moral. And so this is where we talk about what you call helping people, or doing something, or all that. I mean, you do not harm them, but you do not help them. Let's just say if you could save somebody and it's not going to cause you any harm, it's fine. Or you can do something, but you have to be very careful how you do it, because people, again, talking about the bad man, this is where people that take the law and just take it to their full advantage to themselves, even though you have helped them or done something for them. But then again, I would like to read another passage, which is, I think, very interesting, that Wendell Holmes says here about the bad man. But if we take the view of our friend, the bad man, we shall find that he does not care two straws for the axioms or deductions. That he does not care two straws for the axioms or deductions. Meaning, he doesn't care how you interpret the law. Do you use morality, or do you use how you get there? He just wants to know how he can win the case. What can be predicted based on the set of facts or set of rules that are there. He does not care what kind of but then he continues, but he does not want to know what the Massachusetts or English courts are likely to do in fact. End of quote. Um, and that is something that what I'm trying to say here. It says he does not care what axioms or deductions. We know the deductions and axioms, something that we can make in inferences from or deduce from. There are certain arguments or certain stuff. He just wants to know, what will the courts do? What what will we have to do to know and predict about the law? So, and then here's another final quote. The prophecies of what the courts will do in fact, and nothing more pretensions, are what I mean by the law. End of quote. And this is what I'm saying is that, and this is where Wendell Holmes looks at the law. Is he's also interested, not that he's interested, but this is what the law means to him, meaning he has to look at it. What is it? What advantages from a bad man's perspective? The one that doesn't really care about morality, doesn't care the logical reasoning or behind it. He just wants to know, how can I gain from this law? And this is why the separation between morality and law is very important, because I believe that a lot of people think that just because you think something is morally offensive, it must be legally too. No, they're two separate things. Although as the civilization furthers itself and technology grows, morality can influence the law and shall influence the law. We know that if you talk about what was considered legal is separate but equal during Reconstruction era, and that was separate but equal, and that was considered based on morality, based on moral views of a white man. But then the law changes and says, oh, wait a second, we got it all wrong. We don't believe in separate but equal. It doesn't mean separate, it doesn't mean equal. So are those decisions morally influenced, or those decisions that were responding to the demands of the society at that time? So this is how the law also changes, is that, as we can see now during the riots and all that, we see certain things being changed that are morally driven, and they can become legality. But then when that becomes a legality, morality is standing outside of it. All right, this is all I want to talk about today about philosophy of law. I will discuss a little more, but I would like to get into, maybe next time, into Ron Fowler and H.L.A. Hart, one of my favorite legal philosophers of the 20th century. All right, that's all on the path of the law and the Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., a Supreme Court Justice. That's it. Thank you.